Mike squinted in annoyance as the sun insistent ray spread through the glass of the vaulted ceiling in the mall's food court, and jabbed him in the eye. Scooting his yellow plastic chair a couple inches to the left, Mike ducked when a foam dart shot towards his head. He managed to avoid the spongy projectile, as he wished he was anywhere but where he was. Rubbing his face, Mike blinked dry, scratchy eyes. His head felt so heavy that he wasn't sure his neck and shoulders had the strength to hold it up. Man, he was tired. He was so tired. What I need is a vacation, Mike thought as he idly built a little tent on the table in front of him, using his napkins and paper cup. The mention of an actual vacation enlightened an audible snort from Mike, and he brought down a fist to his napkin cup construction, as if vacations were for people with lives, people with money. Mike had neither. If not a vacation, Mike would have settled for a little peace and quiet, but he wasn't going to get that either, certainly not here. Mall security guards were only given 20 minutes for their lunch break, so Mike and his co-workers had two choices for when they spent their compressive rest time. They could either hole up in the guards' dingy break room, where stank of pickles and bleach not a good combination, or they can come to the food court. Usually the food court was preferable, but today Mike wasn't so sure if he had the best choice. A kid was having a birthday party, and screaming munchkins were running amok. Some moron had given the birthday boy foam dart guns as a gift, and the food court has turned into a chaotic battle zone of enticing giggling assaults. In and around the pint-sized revels, mall shoppers prowl through various of fast foods, the aroma that surrounded Mike with another battle, an international one. Italian sauce war with Mexican salsa, which sparred with the smells of fried egg rolls and sizzling burgers. Mike's nostrils were inducting with a jangled mix of curry and ginger and oriental and Celine and dill. Mike bowed up a paper wrapper from refried bean burrito he'd just eaten without tasting. Now that it was in his stomach, he blatantly realized the hot sauce in the burrito had been a little too hot. An inferno began to burn in his solar plexus. Mike shot up the balled up burrito wrapper in a nearby trash can. Dozens of the large steel mesh recyclables were interspersed among the rows of small square tables dotted the expanse of a mall's food court dining area. Mike's paper ball hit the back rim in the can, then dropped in which the rest of the food wrappers, napkins, and paper cups. Score, Mike thought intently. Too bad he wasn't tall. For a few seconds, Mike blocked out the screaming children and imagined being someone much different than who he was. At 25 years old, Mike was okay with his age. He was cool with his looks, too. He was 5'6" and in pretty good shape, even though he didn't have time to work out too much. He didn't think his dark brown hair, hazel eyes, and regular features were particularly handsome, but they weren't ugly either. On one of the rare dates that he had in high school, a girl had told him his eyes were intense because of his pronounced browed ridge. She also said he had a chiseled jaw. He thought she read too many romance novels for sure. She expected a lot more trivial from him than he's been capable of. She wasn't wanted a second date. Now he couldn't even remember the girl's name. No, it wasn't Mike's appearance that was the problem. It was his circumstances. Or maybe it was him. Most of the time, Mike told himself that his life sucked because tragedy had robbed him of a normal childhood and was robbing him from adulthood. But the truth was that the tragedy wasn't the real problem. The problem had come before the tragedy. Mike was the problem. If only he had been someone different back then. What would life be like if Mike had been the kind of guy that girls wanted to date in high school? What would he be doing now if he got into college? He wasn't tall, but he was quick. Maybe he could have played basketball or baseball, or maybe he could take in wood shop and stayed after school to work on projects. He always liked building stuff. He could have done a lot of things if he hadn't had stayed home and listen to this. Mike blinked and looked across the table. He frowned. He'd forgotten Jeremiah was there, and that took some doing. Jeremiah wasn't a fade into the background kind of guy. He was an African-American, linger-bulker-sized man with a half and testify of his love of burgers and copious concessions of soda, whereas Mike's dark blue mall guard bustier shirts and matching pants hung loosely on his lanky body. Jeremiah's huge shoulders and large belly stretched the seam of his uniform. Jeremiah was an okay guy. He didn't get into Mike's nerves the way most of other guards and people in general did, Jeremiah took a loud slurp of soda from the massive paper cup standing in the blue plastic table in front of him. He weaved a paperback book that he held. Jeremiah cleared his throat and read aloud. And thought the dreamer remains asleep. He walks through memory as if experiencing for the first time. Anew, no longer a passenger, but an active participant, Jeremiah frowned. Why is active participant in all caps? Is it like a title or something? Like achieving a level of Grand Lord in a video game? Mike figured Jeremiah's question was rhetorical, so he didn't answer it. Jeremiah closed the book and looked at the light blue cover. Over the abstract image of the closed eye, the book's title, Dream Theory, stretched diagonally in a wavery font as if the words themselves were falling asleep. Jeremiah waved the book again. Is this stuff for real? He asked, raising an eyebrow at Mike. Mike shrugged. Some people think so. Guess it depends on what you believe. Jeremiah nodded. He dropped his lids of the half mask over his round black eyes as he gazed past Mike's shoulder. Mike could tell Jeremiah wasn't watching from the foam-dark gunfight. Jeremiah was lost in his thought. After a few seconds, Jeremiah sighed. Summer of '82. I traded a mint-condition Jal Ricken Jr. rookie card for a used copy of Missile Command. That card's probably worth $800 now. I'd like to participate in that memory. Actively kick myself in the ass for such a stupid decision. He let out a bark of laughter. Then he settled down and tapped the book. Can I keep this? Mike reached down and snatched the book from Jeremiah's head. No. Jeremiah's lips dropped. For a second, he looked like a downtrodden, oversized puppy. Sorry, Mike said. I'm not done with it. Jeremiah's usually happy-go-lucky smile returned. No problem. Feeling bad for snapping at Jeremiah, Mike said, I think we have time for a shake. Want one? My treat. Jeremiah lighted up. Really? Yeah, thanks, dude. Sure. Mike stood up and made his way over to the chrome and bright red lamented counter on the food court. Dairy freeze. A woman who was wearing too much flowery perfume was at the counter, and as soon as Mike heard what she was saying, she started regretting his offer to buy Jeremiah a shake. I want 3 scoops sundae, the woman said in a strange accent that was half southern drawl and half upper crust British. But instead of 3 scoops of 3 flavors, I want half scoops of 6 flavors. I want rum raisin, buttered nut, pecan fudge, strawberry cheesecake, lemon sherbet, and liqueur. On top of the rum raisin, I want strawberry syrup. On the peanut butter chocolate, I want marshmallow chopping. On the Mike shifted his feet. He took a long, deep breath and turned away, attempting to shut out the sound of a woman's interminable order. She moved from the toppings and from describing how she wanted the ice cream arranged in a bowl. Although the birthday party had ended, kids were still playing among the tables of the food court. Some of the kids, a group of 5, were pretending to be cops and robbers at the edge of the tables near the food court's central feature, a dictatorial fountain shaped like a big drink cup and a straw sticking up from the middle. Water spewed from the straw and was caught up in the multicolored lights that spray out from the rim of the cup. The fountain was a little cheesy, but Mike kinda liked it. Hands up, one of the kids near the fountain shouted. The sound came from a purple-haired girl. She had her hands fisted around a pretend gun. A black-haired boy was caught in her sights. He threw his arms out. Book them! The girl ordered another boy, a freckled kid with spiky hair. He marched over to the black-haired boy and pretended to put handcuffs on him. Mike smiled. The things kids got from watching TV. The freckled kid stared, leading a handcuffed kid away, taking him to... Mike's smile abruptly disappeared. Just beyond the pretending cop and the pretend criminal, a small boy, maybe 6 years old, was pressed up against a half wall at the edge of the food court. The top of the hallway was filled with plants, some of which dropped over the wall. The boy, with his blonde curly hair entangled with the flop of his ears, huddled under the fronds of some kind of fern. His brows bunched, his mouth compressed, his gaze darting left and right, his frail arms wrapped tightly around a plush penguin. The boy was a picture of fear. Mike frowned. Why did the boy look so scared? Was he in trouble? Chocolate peanut butter twist, a lively female voice asked. Mike registered the voice but kept his attention on the little boy, until someone gently poked his shoulder. Mike turned towards the poke. A smiley gray-haired woman pointed at the daily counter. I believe you're next, she said. Her voice was warm and kind. It briefly brought back a memory of, you want your usual, right? This time Mike turned towards the voice. Hey, Cindy, he said. Sorry. Cindy flashed her wide smile at Mike. A pretty college student who worked at a dairy freeze to pay for classes, majoring in economics, so she told Mike, even though he expressed no interest in her personal life. Cindy was friendly with everyone. According to Jeremiah, however, Cindy paid particularly attention to Mike. Mike hadn't noticed. Mike frowned. His thoughts wasn't a scared little boy. Was the kid lost? Was he alone? Your usual? Cindy repeated. Huh? Mike focused on Cindy. Her long, brown hair was in the braids today. Cindy hovered her ice cream scoop over the cup of chocolate peanut butter twist. Yeah, Mike said. Sure, he might as well get himself something now that he's here. And a chocolate shake for Jeremiah. Got it. Mike turned away from Cindy and looked past the little girls, whose dance was degenerate a little gay fest. He took a step to his right till he could see the area of the half-wall planters. He spotted the fern, but the boy was gone. Mike quickly scanned the area, aware that his breath was quakening. Mike could feel a rushing sound of his ear. He recognized the sound. It was a sound of panic. So when are you going to bring Abby by? Cindy asked. Mike heard Cindy, but he didn't acknowledge her. He was still desperate trying to spy the little boy. We got a new flavor, Cindy continued. Rainbow explosion. I bet she'll go bonkers for it. Mike stepped away from the dairy freeze counter, dodging a couple of round-housing pretend boys. Mike strode past the row of tables. Mike? Cindy called out, chased Mike as he broke into a half-trot, leaning towards where he'd last seen the boy. Mike's gaze was a laser prop of fiction. It ignored everything Mike saw except for, there! Mike spotted the boy. He was about 40 feet away. No longer by a halfway planter, the boy was heading towards a fountain. The boy mostly had his back to Mike now, but Mike recognized the flauny blonde curls, and he saw a penguin flipper sticking out from under the boy's bony elbow. The boy was stumbling awkwardly through the food court, heading towards the mall main corridors, and he was no longer alone. As Mike jogged closer to the boy, he saw the tall, dirty blonde man had his hands capped around the boy's wrists. The man was pulling the boy along, wrenching him into a pace that was obviously far too fast for such a little boy. Hey! Mike yelled. Mike broke into a run, shoving through a young couple holding hands. Mike kicked the chairs aside and pushed past anyone who got in his way, only particularly aware of his heads turning towards him and a few annoying grunts and angry protests. Mike sprinted through the food court, because the man was hindering by an awkwardly floundering little boy. Mike quickly closed the gap between him and the man. Hey you! Mike shouted. Stop! Like most of the people around Mike, the man started to turn towards Mike. Mike briefly registered the man's raised eyebrows before launching him through the last 3 feet of space between him and the jerk who was trying to take the kid. As Mike shot towards the man, Pike pulled back his arm, clenching his fist. He aimed a swift jab at the man's nose. Mike heard a crackle as he felt Kurteva give his knuckles. At the same time, Mike's momentum resulted in the trembling collision of a man. Together, they spilled into the base of the water fountain. When Mike hit the water, he lost his ability to logically process what he was doing. Something primitive in him took over. Something that turned his arms into curling pistons that kept driving towards the man's face. When the man fought back, landing a glancing blow along Mike's jaw and an angling knee in Mike's belly, Mike's rage revved into overdrive. He threw himself onto the man, flinging both of them down the water. With the result of the man's retaliation or Mike's out-of-control fury, Mike bit his lip. He tasted blood. Mike felt blood in his knuckles too. The warmth of what extracted to the fountain's ice-cold water. Out of the corner of his eye, Mike saw a red flame towards of the clear fountain water, the red target of memory, and the memory turned Mike's thought dark, so dark it felt like he was falling into a black void.